Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Neville Gaunt, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about a structured solution to the refugee problem. That sounds like a big, difficult problem to solve, Neville. So, welcome here. Where can people find you before we get into the discussion?
Thanks very much, Tim. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn under Neville Gaunt. I happen to be one of the first people on LinkedIn, so there are no numbers after me. Or you can look at the Mindfit website, which is mindfitlimited.co.uk. Or you can find me on Facebook or any other social media. Again, with Neville Gaunt. I'm pretty old, so I was one of the first few there, Tim.
Well, it's just past my 19th anniversary on LinkedIn, so you may be even longer than that.
Wow. You may have beaten me, to be honest. But yeah, long time.
So, talk to us about this the refugee situation that you've been you're starting to you've seen and the solution that you've come up with.
Well, I've been looking at the refugee arena for about 10 or 12 years. And if you're like me and you always give to people collecting for charity and you're into Red Nose Day, Comic Relief, or Children in Need, you always think that it goes straight to source. And it's
so
not.
You think that if you're giving £10, £10 goes to the source?
Yeah, and clearly, although Children in Need and Red Nose Day say 100% goes there, in the majority of the NGOs or the aid agencies, there needs to be some admin cover. And you're quite happy with 10 or 15% admin cover because these are big organizations. And in the main, the majority of funds actually do go to source. But the problem has become a crisis because there's an old saying that underpins the aid agency arena, and it's something like this. There are many variations, but it's something like this. Give a man a fish and he feeds his family for a week. Teach him how to fish and he feeds his family for a lifetime. And that's underpinned the aid agency ever since I can remember, back into last century, which is a long time ago for many people. But the problem we've got today is we've got more need and less resources. So we've got more people being displaced through, no reason of their own, and they're typically pushed to another country, into a tent. There's no welcoming committee, and then they're given a minimal amount of money, if they're lucky, to find food and literally eat. The teach a man how to fish, unfortunately, is moving further and further away into the distant horizon, and that's really where we need to be focused now. We can't solve the feed them issue, frankly, because they're doing a great job with limited resources. We need to solve the other piece. In other words, give them a bit of hope, help them find a job, or help them start a business.
So one of the things I thought everybody knew that if an organisation like Oxfam, 80% of the money that you give to Oxfam basically goes on admin. I thought everybody knew that. Maybe they don't.
Well, there are some sort of conflicting discussion.
That's their own figures, I believe. That's but that's the magnitude that we're talking about. That when you give £1. So when I go and buy a CD at Oxfam for £1, basically 20%, 20 pence of it goes to something or other.
Well, that's got to be bad news, isn't it?
Well, I get a CD.
Yeah. Well, you get a CD, but if a big chunk goes on admin, then we're not really getting to the real heart of the problem. If we're raising $1 billion, let's put it in real terms. If we're raising $1 billion, only $200,000 is going to solve the problem. That's not good enough.
No.
And no business actually could exist on 80% admin.
No. And so if we think about this, feed a person, or feed the person a fish, or teach a person how to fish. If we start thinking about, okay, so we can't. There's no way as a world that we can basically keep giving people food. and as a long-term solution doesn't work, where do we go in terms of how do we teach people how to fish? What is the way that we do that?
Well, as I say, we can't continually give charity because, if you've noticed over the last 2 or 3 years, even in the UK, we've had very high inflationary tactics. We've had food shortages. We've got food banks galore in the UK. Whether you believe that we should have food banks or not, the UK is a developed country. We are the 5th GDP in the world. So when you think of that, the refugee giving charity arena has gone. We've got to recognise that the model has broken. We need to start to repair the model and then look at it completely differently. And I've looked at this in a number of ways. I mean, I started to look at this really intensely in 2016, 2017, when I was asked to speak at the ADEX exhibition in Brussels. It's a 2-day conference of all the aid agencies, convening in Brussels. Nice location, which is great. And what I found out very quickly is that most of these aid agencies are actually only financed for rolling 6-month periods.
Right.
So when you think of building a dwelling, a house, you can't build a house that's got a rolling 6-month issue for a small amount of money, when a tent for 6 months, again, we've got to start thinking about, why is it 6 months? Well, people were only transitionary into these refugee camps for 6 to 9 months. That model's broken. I mean, I'm dealing with one, as we'll hear a bit later. This young man has been there for 13 years and he's only 26 years old. He's been there half his life. And that's the problem with the camps. So they're funded to provide tents, but really we need to be providing villages. They are becoming permanent villages. And some people, I've heard them when they're speaking internationally, they call them prisons, because you can't get out of the prison. You literally live and die. You go there to live and you go there to die, which is
so one of the things that you've done, Nev, is that you've looked at the situation with refugees, and you've actually come up with this situation that we have at the moment, where they're reliant on money, but there's an ability for you to teach them things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of efforts going on about skills transfer in all of these camps, but that's great. That's a re-education. But the problem is, a skills transfer is not going to get them a job. Equally, it's not going to create a business. So what you need to be focused on is creating a business.
Right.
And what we've done there. So we know, and you've got to reverse engineer it. So there's no point in having a lot of potential entrepreneurs come into you with great ideas, just like having these incubator programs around the world. You get 30 really dynamic, young, enthusiastic people going into this incubator, and they're all going to go and create different businesses. But the reality of that is because they're all creating different businesses, they're not really focused on the one business and the one tactics or the one strategy you need to sell what you're doing. So if you reverse engineer it, as I say, and look at what the local community really wants, we know what they need, needs and wants in small business land. Forget what they need, give them what they want. And what they want typically is they need clothing, because it's in small supply. They need pots and pans, believe it or not, because they need to cook. But more importantly, they need to feel clean. So we focused on a product called it Endless Love Soap,
okay.
But it's liquid soap.
So you did some research, didn't you, in terms of in the camp, in terms of finding out what was the number one thing that they needed?
Absolutely. And the number one thing they said, well, we need to feel clean. We need to be clean. And then we said, well, you've already got soap. Yeah, but it's hard blocks of soap. This is not very easy to use. So we just refined it and said, well, would liquid soap help? And all of a sudden, the light bulb comes on with everybody. They all start smiling, and you realise, my goodness, if we can turn hard soap into liquid soap, we've got a market. So it's not rocket science. But then what you need to do is, having that one product, you then attract a lot of people into your team. We called it the Happy Ladder Club. So you come there on a regular basis. We teach you not just how to make liquid soap, but how to sell it. So we're all focused on one product and one audience. And of course, guess what? All of the people in the club would be buyers of soap anyway. You know, so it's not as though we're making something that they wouldn't buy. So they're already coming up with the ideas of how to sell it. So as I say, this really isn't rocket science at the end of the day, and we're not dealing with a downtown, middle London type, pretty tough arena. I mean, across the whole of Africa, half of these camps are in deserts. So there's not a lot of arable land. So you've got to focus on a product that they really want to have. And again, when you think of the average salary in these areas is like $15 or $20 a month, you can't charge a great deal for your product. But again,
So what you've done is, go on.
No, I'm just saying the other issue is I can't import all of our international trainers, and expect them to live there and pay them, because immediately we'll be back in Oxfam land. 80% is going to go on admin, or even more, frankly. So what you need to do is to look at the local structure, and you need to see who's available to do what locally, and then you can really, cut your cloth accordingly. Because if people are living out there for like $5 or $10 a month, you can employ them for $20 to $25 a month. They're earning a reasonable salary, but more importantly, they're enjoying what they do.
So what you've done is that you found that there is a need for a particular product. You've created an ability for these individuals to create this product and then sell it at the same time. So in effect, you've created a market.
Yeah, it's a mini ecosystem, as people love to talk about these terms. I just say it's common sense. So if you imagine taking a bit of a step back now, right? So we've defined the first product on the high street, what everybody wants. And we know, given, if anyone's lived in a conflict situation, in a war zone, they all know that once the fighting stops and it becomes secure, people come on the street to trade. We saw that in Afghanistan all the time, and in Iraq. People come out with their wares in their little, trolleys, and they come out and they start to sell things, because that's what they did before the war. So we just need to be smart and think locally. Not provide a global solution, but provide it locally.
So how are you providing? So you're providing a solution in terms of getting them to understand how to manufacture and then to sell. But it's not just a case of then sell. It's you're carrying on with the support in terms of that as well, which is why you've got the names of the Ladder Club and I can't remember what the other names were as well.
Well, that's really important, Tim. You hit the nail on the head. Every business needs a mentor. You need to have that mentor that comes to you on a regular basis, or you go to them, that gives you that little encouragement, gives you a couple more ideas, and you just keep moving and moving forward. So that's a well-known model. So the whole purpose of what we've called the Happy Ladder Club is that you come into the club, you don't pay anything for it, because we're training you. We train you how to make a product. We train you how to sell a product. You have fun selling the product. You bring other people in to say, would you like to help me sell this or manufacture it? So you actually create growth, because the product is getting a good name locally. People are feeling happier that they're cleaner, their clothes are cleaner. I mean, you can use soap for lots and lots of different reasons. And if you look at the majority of people that are in the camp, over 80% are women. Now, I don't know a woman in the world that doesn't want to, feel clean and smell clean, So consequently, there is this captive arena. And the nice thing about, as we called it, the Happy Ladder Club, is you keep coming back to the club even after you've been through the program. So we have a program for 3 months, 90 days. And during that time, you gain more self-esteem, courage, confidence. I mean, frankly, we could close the program down after 3 weeks because they're already there.
And in effect, what you're doing is that you're building micro businesses, aren't you? Because what they're doing is that there's was it something you don't charge, but what happens is that they pay an amount of money for the going to the club or something like that, and that basically pays back in effect the loan that they've taken out.
In essence, yeah, we don't tell them what it's good. Well, we do tell them what it's going to cost, but we say we don't want your money, we want your success. And once you become profitable, we would expect you to come back and mentor new people, but equally, we'll mentor you to go further and further, and you pay approximately $2 a month out of your profit.
Okay.
And they're very happy to do that. And of course, that means that in real terms, I suppose, we get payback after 2 and a bit years, because it costs us approximately $50 per micro business to set up. And that includes all the training. And by the way, the trainers that are there are refugees. So we're paying refugees to train refugees. So again, this is a nice little ecosystem that's working out, very nicely. We also set them up with the materials for the training. And at the end of it, we give them materials so that they can start their micro business. We don't give them $100, but we're going to give them a month's worth of trading supply so they can get out without them costing anything at all. So it's quite a unique little model. Can we do it anywhere else in the world? Yeah, of course you can.
So I was going to say, are you looking to actually,
the ecosystem?
Because at the moment you've got a GoFundMe page, haven't you, for Uganda? Are you looking to roll this out into different places in the world, and for different products?
Ideally, I'm using Uganda, in fact, the Nakivale refugee settlement as an example. The reason I chose Nakivale is that the camp was designed for 50,000 people in 1959. Now, I can remember 1959 because that's the year I was born. That's how old I am. So, but today there's 175,000 people in that camp. It's just, grown and grown and grown and grown. Obviously, the facilities need to have grown with it, and they haven't. So we got a real problem in that one camp. And I'm not saying Uganda isn't a nice refugee arena, because frankly, if you go to the BBC website, they'll say it's one of the best refugee arenas in the world. That doesn't mean to say that anyone's coming out of the refugee camps, because they're not. As I say, there's only 2 ways to come out, and that's to go and find a job somewhere else or start a business. But the idea is that the GoFundMe just for Nakivale, we're asking for £3,000. We've got nearly 500 donated already. So thank you very much to all those people out there. And that's given us the confidence to be able to start the next program, which, interesting enough, starts on the 29th of February.
And that's in a way getting those $50 in effect with a
that's the 50 exactly.
So what people are paying for are the $50 to allow a person to start their own micro business.
Absolutely. And we're going to do the soap program again, but we're also going to bring hairdressers, because guess what? Another thing on the high street is to have a hairdresser. Everyone wants to look good. And equally, people need to look good from a different side. So we're creating a seamstress program at the same time. Our purchase means we're going to have to buy other things like needles and thread and all those sort of things, but we're already geared up to it. Again, that means the high street has now got 3 strings to its bow, and we'll go on to the next one and the next one. And it's all going to be driven by want. And as I say, ideally, because of the way we've structured it, all of our external mentors, I've got 4 international good friends of mine, they all providing their time for free. They're not charging for it. That's why it's $50 per micro business, frankly. And that's why we've managed to make it, fairly tight, fairly unique. But I'm very happy to speak with anyone who wants to take it into their refugee camp, or even into their, disadvantaged, town, city, or village.
So,
Because
Neville, where can people find you?
Well, as I say, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. Or Google me on social media, Neville Gaunt. You'll see my ugly face turn up.
And your GoFundMe page is on my LinkedIn profile. It's right directly under the LinkedIn profile.
Absolutely, it's on mine as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I say, the idea of the GoFundMe page is literally just to kickstart. So I only want to go once. I don't need to come back for that particular program, but we need to come back for other programs as we start them off from nothing.
Neville, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about a structured solution to the refugee problem. Thank you so much. And if people need to get hold of you, they can get you on LinkedIn, or the GoFundMe page is one of the first comments.
Thanks very much, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. Bye.